We're going to finish up now, but some thank yous. Thank you all for coming. I always say this, without our pagan community, we couldn't be playing our music and selling our music, so thank you all so much. Terry, thank you so much. Terry, our green man. Jeff for recording down there for us. Thank you, Jeff. Now, if you'd like to sing along with this, please do, while you're doing your spiral circle. So let your voices soar. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return, like a drop of rain flowing to the ocean. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return, like a drop of rain flowing to the ocean. In the cool of the evening, they used to gather 'neath the stars in the meadow, circled near an old oak tree. At the times appointed by the seasons of the earth and the phases of the moon. In the center often stood a woman, equal with the others and respected for her worth. One of the many we call the witches, the healers and the teachers of the wisdom of the earth. And the people grew in the knowledge she gave them, herbs to heal their bodies, spells to make their spirits whole. Hear them chanting healing incantations, calling forth the wise ones, celebrating in dance and song. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. 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 There were those who came to power through domination, and they were bonded in their worship of a dead man on a cross. They sought control of the common people by demanding allegiance to the Church of Rome, and the Pope declared the Inquisition. It was a war against the women whose power they feared in that Holocaust against the nature people. 9 million European women died, and the tale is told of those who, by the hundreds, holding together, chose their deaths in the sea, while chanting the praises of the mother goddess. A refusal of betrayal, women were dying to be free. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Now the earth is a witch, and the men still burn her, stripping her down with fighting and the poisons of their wars. Still to us, the earth is a healer, a teacher, a mother, the weaver of a web of life that keeps us all alive. She gives us the vision to see through the chaos. She gives us the courage, it is our will to survive. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. 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 We all come from the Jordan, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We all come from the Jordan, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. 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 Good night and thank you.
And welcome to Pagan FM. We're coming to you from South Jersey, the home of the Jersey Devil, and just outside Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. I'm Dee, I'm your hostess, and that was Spiral Dance with Burning Times from their album Live, Warts and All. It's a cover of a Charlie Murphy song from his 1981 album, Catch the Fire. I'll talk a bit more about that piece and one of the major misconceptions in paganism that I hope we've mostly outgrown later on in the show. You may be hearing some wind chimes in the background. It is really windy out here. We've got kind of a wind advisory going on, and it's been just darn cold. I'm one step closer to going back to live podcasts. I was hoping to today. I've got my Apple Mac Mini up and running. Didn't quite have the time to finish the configuring the software and getting some external hardware on that machine going. Still working on it. Such is the problem of trying to do a weekly podcast like this while working a full-time job. Anyway, hopefully next week, maybe the week after, we'll see what happens. Working on it. So, what I've got left to do is get the software running, run a test show, make sure the audio chain is good, and then we'll be ready to go. Anyway, on with the show as it is. This week has been a bit strange. I've been not so much having difficulty coming up with a topic to discuss, but more settling on one of many. I remember quite a few years ago when I first started doing Pagan FM, and I kind of ran into a problem trying to come up with a topic. I couldn't think of anything in particular to talk about, so I wrote about my writing process, how I choose topics, and that alone opened things up. But this week, I was originally going to talk about the history of modern paganism and family traditions and the like. But in reading Gerald Gardner's book, High Magic's Aid, things changed. I kind of redirected my focus. It just didn't seem to be coming together that way. I was thinking about originally talking about the history because it is kind of a historic book in paganism. It just didn't seem right, so I changed my focus. What the focus did seem to be was more directed toward the assault we see on religious freedom from the religious right. While the religious right claims that religious freedom is under attack, like any other claim they make, it's false. They've claimed that the world is Xing out Christmas when people say Xmas, intentionally forgetting that Xmas comes from the Latin initial for Christ. X is literally Christ's initial. It's the letter chi. The Catholic Church has had the Latin letters chi rho superimposed as a Christogram. I say that this is intentional forgetting because the leaders of the movement aren't stupid. They understand the idea of a Christogram. But they need the uneducated masses of their movement to be angry and mobilized. They need people to vote for Christian nationalism. They want their agenda enacted into law. And to make that happen, they need a movement that is angry and motivated. They need behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. They need to manage their members. And so they manipulate the reality of the members of their cult. Truth doesn't matter. What matters is a manufactured reality that the leadership is able to manipulate in order to get the members to behave as they wish. This is what happened during the witch hunts. It's what happened during the Holy Roman Empire. It's what happened among those who are trying to enact a theocracy here in the United States today. And given that the United States is trying to gain control of Greenland, Canada, Venezuela, Panama, and the gods know who or what else, the idea that Trump fancies himself as an emperor is seeming less and less far-fetched as day follows day and month follows month. Hopefully, he can be held at bay, and it's probably because of that he's trying to build his own Arc de Triomphe, or perhaps an Arc de Trump. I'm pretty sure that even he knows he can't really triumph at much of anything, given that almost everything he does ends in bankruptcy. But he can at least try. Anyway, things took a bit of a turn of direction this week, so we'll go where the winds of inspiration lead and see where we wind up. And for new artists this week, I want to give a warm welcome to Ginger Doss and Spiral Dance. Both of these artists have been part of the Pagan community for quite a few years, and I'm pleased to welcome them to the reboot of Pagan FM. Ginger is new to the show while Spiral Dance is returning to the reboot. I first met Adrienne of Spiral Dance and the rest of the band when they were doing a concert in Salem, Massachusetts some years ago. I'm really happy to have them here. And I'm sure you'll enjoy their music. You just heard Burning Times, and we'll hear something from one of their new albums here in a few minutes. Actually, just a very few minutes. Taking a look at the local weather, you can kind of hear the wind blowing in the background, if you can hear our wind chimes. We're in the midst of a major cold snap right now here in South Jersey and Philadelphia, with an extreme cold warning in effect until Sunday, February 8th at noon. Lows tonight are 4 degrees, with a high on Sunday of 19. Low of Sunday night of about 5 degrees. We can expect it to warm on Monday a bit as we get up to 28 and get down to about 15 on Monday night. On Tuesday, we'll finally get back above freezing with a high of about 37 and a low on Tuesday night of 26. Wednesday may see a bit of our snow gone with a chance of rain and a high in the low 40s, and we'll see what happens after that. Right now, we're going to hear a little more music. Coming up, Spiral Dance with Dark Night of the Soul from their new-ish album. Came out in 2005. This is from their album 13 Notes.
The silver moon lay upon the black water, upon the black water that covered the lake. She stepped over storms and walked down to the shallows to ask the bright lady what path she should take. And the silver light crept into all the dark places, into her heart and into her mind. Storm clouds will gather, the moon will be waning. Come drink from the cauldron to see what you'll find. Deep in the silence of snow-covered mountains, down to the valley, a glitter with frost. In the depth of the night, she searched for the tinder to try and rekindle the embers she'd lost. But the fire had died and the flames were all ashes. The rose and the briar no longer entwined. Somewhere there's a dream that's suspended in amber, and the scar on her heart will be there for all time. Drops of rain gather on the hot, cold, bare branches. Weather the storm, and your leaves turn to rust. Sing into the wind and cast words to the ether. Dance in the passion, then choke on the dust. A new story has risen, but who writes the ending? There's thorns in the heart, and there's storms in the head. Fingers would dance across a cold fretboard. The lyrics were there, but the music had fled. Many winters have passed, and summer comes bringing warmth and a start to a new melody. Shining notes scribbled across the soft vellum, words written in tears will sketch new memories. A soul there's no going backward in time. Dragonfly danced across the blue water, across the blue water that covered the lake. She stepped over storms and walked down to the shallows to ask the bright lady what path she should take. No point gathering thread to mend what was broken, or remember the feel of that final embrace. The bright lady's beside you, the full moon will guide you. The story is over and the ending has changed.
From the center of the circle, I can see the world in all directions streaming out from me. With the eyes of my soul, I see my four reflections. From the center of the circle, I can see the world in all directions streaming out from me. With the eyes of my soul, I see my four reflections. Yeah, as the infant in the east begins to open his eyes, the fire from within will ignite the sky. In this moment I am my own creation. Growing wild within myself, let your nectar fill my mouth. I will drink of all desire, dance to midday sun, my sire. I can face the four directions, knowing all without, within. I can learn from these connections, for the world and I are in the west we go to sleep, merry part and merry meet. Oh, you cannot give away what will be back. And even with the setting sun, a new day has begun on the other side. And with what you have done, you will now decide. Yeah. In the winter midnight north, let the mystery profile.
right, so that was Spiral Dance with Dark Night of the Soul from their 2025 album 13 Notes. And right after that, we heard Ginger Doss with Four Directions from her album Hand and Hammer. So again, this week I wanted originally to talk mostly about the history of modern paganism, but I had a bit of a change of plans instead of that. Having read High Magic's Aid by Gerald Gardner, which I must confess I hadn't read before, I do want to change tack a bit. I know I've been reading some of the older works. I've been reading some Dion Fortune and Gerald Gardner. Dion Fortune, High Magic's Aid, I had read before. Oh my gosh. I mean, High Magic's Aid I hadn't read before. The Sea Priestess I had read before. I haven't read a lot of Gerald Gardner, and I think this year I may be going back and reading some of the classics that I haven't yet read. I've been doing a lot of reading lately. I think last year I read, I don't know, maybe about 50 books. And I know I've been reading about one book a week this year. So I've been doing a lot of reading. So I think you guys may come on a bit of a journey with me as I keep up that schedule. Next week will be something a bit newer. We'll be looking at Rhonda McCrimmon's The Celtic Wheel of the Year. That's a brand new book from Hierophant. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, this week, after reading High Magic's Aid, it got me thinking about the idea of empires, and which is why I just mentioned what Donald Trump has got me thinking about. So we've had a few empires in the history. We had the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the British Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and what strikes a little bit of fear in me is the possibility that our current government may be harboring some sort of imperial ambitions. Currently, our president has invaded Venezuela. Not a huge invasion, but we've deposed the government there, and he plans on running Venezuela. He's also threatened to take military action in Mexico and Iran. He's suggested taking over and running Gaza. When Pope Leo III appointed the Frankish king Charlemagne as the Roman emperor on December 25th in AD 800, he revived an empire after some 324 years. The Holy Roman Empire lasted until 1806, so for about 1,006 years. The First Roman Empire began in AD 27, or was it 27 or 27 BC? So, 27 BC to 426 AD, so for about 454 years. It's really kind of interesting to note that for about 70% of the past 2 millennia, the Roman Empire existed in one form or another. So what is an empire? An empire is a group of states under a single supreme authority. Whether that authority goes under the name of the king, an emperor, or any other title, it's not the title that's relevant. It's multiple states under the control of a monarch. Same thing was, that's what the British Empire was, which went on for quite a while. The idea that our president has autocratic ambitions is beyond dispute. He's greedy, he's unscrupulous, he's treacherous, he doesn't care about individuals or nations unless they serve him in some way. He shows no respect for the leaders of other nations. He shows no respect for anyone unless they serve him in some way. That way may be only to boost his own ego. It may be to be of use against someone who's a perceived enemy of his. It might be to simply satisfy his own greed or his more base desires. In any case, People, businesses, nations, nobody and nothing is of any real value to Trump unless it can serve him. We see this in the destruction of the East Wing of the White House. We see it in his treatment of the Kennedy Center, in the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, which he's planning on demolishing. Whatever he touches, whatever he gets his hands on, if it doesn't serve him, he doesn't care about it. This is also why he's been denying disaster and other funding to blue states or states that have in some way slighted him, to colleges and universities that don't bow to his will. It's why he's levying tariffs on countries that don't do what he wants, even though it's American citizens who pay those tariffs. And the only effects are reduced trade in both directions. It's why he says he will do one thing and doesn't care when he does something completely different. These are all the tactics of an autocrat and are completely at odds to the concept of democratic government. The Trump administration has fundamentally altered how our government operates. He has dismantled constitutionally created agencies, completely twisted the meaning of laws to discriminate against people those laws were designed to protect, and created unnecessary fear and terror among countless people living in this country. In High Magic's Aid, the main characters are fighting against someone who wrested control over from rightful rulers of a region, and this character is seeking to regain his rightful place. The individual who the characters are struggling against is, like Trump, a force of evil, though he's a stronger man. But in High Magic's Aid, a combination of physical and magical power come together in the struggle for righteousness to win over against evil. I'm not sure what powers we can gather together in our world to win over when it comes to the Trump administration. I do know that our pagan community is rather small, and the number of Christians who still support Trump, while beginning to diminish, is still much larger than we are. But there are a great many Christians who are waking up to who and what Trump actually represents. Some are seeing how, in supporting him, they have sullied the name of Christ and are beginning to distance themselves from him. But even these aren't good people. In our Practical Pagan segment tonight, I may even change that. I'm still going to discuss some things. Yeah, I'm changing that. I've been writing this in stages. But in our Practical Pagan segment tonight, I'm going to be talking more about focus. So I'm going to change this a little bit. But yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to change that. But we do need to discuss focus, and that's what I'm going to talk about in our Practical Pagan segment tonight. See, I've lost a little bit of focus, so I'm going to discuss focus in our Practical Pagan segment once we get back after listening to a little more music. So I will see after that. My focus has been a little bit altered this evening. So let's hear some more music.
wouldn't buy that name. Look where you must. Look where you can. Pay no mind to what you see. Behold our maple rise again. Join us on the village green. Where is the land? Nowhere that I can see. Where is the land? Under the apple tree. Welcome to the manor house. From the secrets that you fear. Hold your morals tighter now. Your king will not help you here. Where is the land? She was never there. Where is the land? That she is the hair. Welcome stranger, welcome fool. Our agent of the crown. King today, our lamb, our fool. Flames will rise as the sun goes down. Where is the land? Right now, watching the fire. Where is the land? Watching, watching, watching
story not heard in the bright palace light can only be told as a secret of night. The girl in the garden and I, from a knife to a lantern and back again. She closes her eyes and weaves wonders. They hang in the air, hold my breath like a hunter. The girl in the garden and I. Oh, la, 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 oh, la, the stars in their courses will run and bring their hearts earthward to hear her. The boughs of the fruit trees bend nearer to the girl in the garden. Oh, la 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 us both in its hand. With every tale on my ear, it comes nearer the shore. For we both dread the day when the words fall away, and a demon will judge her. Then I fear that my dear will be gone. Shed a tear for the girl in the garden, all of her years in the garden. The girl in the garden and as clear as tattoos on your eyes, as clear as tattoos on your eyes.
All right, so that was Featherscale with King for a Day from their album Gypsy Heart. And then we heard S.J. Tucker with Girl in the Garden from her album Sirens. So in my latest change of focus, we're going to be talking about focus in our Practical Pagan segment. So what is it that differentiates those from who are truly successful at anything from those who are mediocre? What is it that makes some people great and others seemingly never able to accomplish much? And I do think that much of it depends on focus. In all magical training, we tend to be taught that outcome depends on our ability to focus energy. That is the point of our magical tools. They aren't there to do the work for us. They aren't the sources of power. Rather, they are there to focus what energy we're able to develop within ourselves. But in anything that we strive to accomplish or achieve, the outcome is directly related to the amount of energy that we're willing to put into what it is that we're trying to accomplish. It's related to our ability to focus. If our goal is to become an accomplished musician, we can buy instruments, we can buy books, but unless we're willing to study and practice with those instruments, they'll never be more than decorations. If our goal is to write, we can spend money on computers and word processing programs and typewriters and subscriptions to writing magazines and pens and paper and journals and notebooks. But if we never practice the craft of writing, we aren't going to develop as writers. And the same goes for any other goal that we might wish for. It might be athletics, academics, hiking, travel, art, crafts, or magic and the occult. Whatever we might have as a goal, we can spend time around the periphery acquiring the accoutrement. But if we don't step into the pool and eventually make our way to the deep end of whatever it is that we desire, we will never accomplish that goal. I'm reminded of a story where a man wants to win the lottery. Every single day he says a prayer, "Dear God, please let me win the lottery." Day after day, it's the same thing. He'll walk past a store, see the lottery tickets there, and utter his prayer and say, "Dear God, please let me win the lottery." One night, saying his prayers, once again he utters the familiar word, "Please God, let me win the lottery." But this time something different happens. This time he hears a voice in response. This time a voice replies, "Help me out a little, buy a ticket." Once, some years ago, someone was asking me for some advice. This person was always coming to me with the same problem, wanting a job but never finding one. Then again, never really looking either. And so I told her this story. It's tough to get that job when you're not really looking. It's tough to be a writer when you're not writing. It's tough to be a musician when you're not playing and practicing and looking for gigs. Likewise, in magic, it's tough to get good at something when we don't practice. In my own practice, I realized this week I've been a little stagnant. I've done more work lately since I restarted this show than I've done in a long time. I had stepped away after realizing that the last group I was in was a cult. And I was leaning back towards some Christian roots. I still don't have a problem with Christ, but I now consider myself more a pagan who has room for Christ. I don't consider the Bible as anything more than an account of what the followers of Christ believed about Christ, and it's no more authoritative than any other scripture from any other religion. I do believe there are elements within Christian scripture that were put there in order to help impose that set of beliefs on others, to cast it as superior. But Christianity isn't alone in doing so. But, as I often do, I digress. I've found my way back to paganism. I left because I found the group I was in, as I said, was a cult. That group was really focused. But when I left completely. My tools, all of it, were gone. So I'm rebuilding. What I learned, though, in doing this show again, is that not everything is in the tools. The main tool is the focus itself. The main tool is the mind. But one incident this week helped me to regain even more of that focus. As I was walking to work one day, something caused me to go over the casting of the circle. In the direction of the east, our group used to recall what was important in each of the directions. In the east, one of those things was the unity between mothers and daughters. This makes sense in part because the east is direction of Imbolc and the vernal equinox, and it's a time when daughters need mothers. This hit me hard because I didn't have that sort of relationship with my birth mother. But it came later with other women who taught me what kind of a daughter I was capable of being. And so, as I renew my pagan path, I think that I do it in honor of those relationships. And perhaps part of my focus is healing that part of myself that didn't have the relationship I needed with my own mother when I was growing up. When I look at the idea of focus and I look to popular depictions of magic, all too often I see people trying to use magic to get something they want. They want wealth. They want a good job. They want a good grade for a college semester. They want to be accepted into a certain university or college. They want a spell to make someone love them. These things are misguided. Magic can get you the things that you want, but it doesn't do those things in the way most people think. Magic doesn't simply bring you money. Magic changes you so you're the sort of person who can become worth that money. With the practice of magic, you can become the author or musician or scientist or artist or whatever it is that you wish to be. And that's how those things come to you. Magic isn't going to trap someone into loving you. If it did, it wouldn't be the sort of magic that I would want to practice. But it can make you be the sort of person who will be attractive to the sort of person that you want to attract. You will begin to understand what is attractive and what isn't. You will begin to understand yourself and others better, and you will develop an ease and a confidence about yourself that will become attractive. It's this sort of understanding that the focus of magic brings about. We focus inward and we focus outward. We practice magic and spells not with the hope that with no work whatsoever things will come to us, but rather so that we can understand what work is necessary. This is part of why Dion Fortune would often say that an understanding of the world, of science, of mathematics, of psychology, of each of these things is necessary and foundational for occult practice. The gods and goddesses aren't beings separate from and in control of nature. They're part of nature. They are the soul of nature, and we're connected to them. It's our job to understand them, because in understanding them, we begin to understand ourselves. In focusing on them, in focusing on nature, we learn to focus on ourselves and on how to improve ourselves. We become better versions of who we are when we cooperate with nature. We can begin to look with discernment at our own gifts and strengths and weaknesses and understand where we fit best in the world we live in. Not each of us is meant to be an artist or a musician or a priest or a priestess or a physician or anything else. Just wanting something isn't always enough. I think that sometimes we are done a disservice when we're told, you can be anything you want to be. Those are great words, but not everyone can be an astronaut. And while it seems right now that almost anyone could get away with being president, the truth is that we couldn't. It normally takes a great deal of intelligence and integrity and skill to do that job. Sometimes we need an exception to prove the world. But the first part of that focus is determining what we really want. If you're listening to this program, then I probably can assume that living a pagan way of life is of some importance to you. And if it is, then the first step is in knowing yourself. I admire Christopher Penczak's approach in his Temple of Witchcraft series, in which the first book is the inner temple of witchcraft, because that's where the foundational work is always done. It comes about in understanding who we are, what we're good at, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. I think that one good lesson I learned some time ago to start off is by writing down what it is that we actually believe as we get started. The Latin word credo literally means I believe. The Christian creeds have things backwards. In Christianity, the creeds were statements of belief that were imposed rather than something organic. They didn't say what an individual actually believed, but what they were supposed to believe. And by reciting them, the members of the church were supposed to come to believe that the statements in the creeds, as facts. What I recommend is something different. If you journal, write down right now what you do believe. How do you think this universe came to be? How did you come to be in this universe? Who do you think the gods and goddesses are? What is your relationship to the gods and goddesses? What do you think death is? Do you think we return after we die? These are deep questions to ponder, to focus on. But what's different between us and conservative Christianity is that our creed isn't stagnant. It doesn't need to remain the same eternally. It's not dogma. It's what we happen to understand, to believe right now, and it can change. But that's the point of focusing inward and outward alternately. By doing so, we can constantly see where we are and where we need to be. We can see what we want and what we need to get it, not in a hedonistic fashion, but in an altruistic fashion. This is another thing that I love about the pagan way, as I see it today, especially after breaking away from conservative Christianity and from a series of cults. In cults, it's always been us against them. It's always about secrets. It's always about some danger behind someone's motives. Where I'm at right now is that there is something that is the best outcome for the most people, and I can work for that. But again, looking for that requires focus. And I guess that's what I'm looking for in my pagan path right now. It's that strength of focus. I suppose that it's fitting that the first tool I'm working on right now is my new theme. I've got the blade, I've got the hilt, I've got the scales already, so I'm going to be assembling them all into a new tool to be used to focus energy. And then I'll be working on a new leather sheath for it. In the past, I purchased a knife and I called it my theme. This time I'm making my own. Again, it requires more focus. And I can do so much more learning by building things myself. Anyway, I need some more focus. So I'm going to listen to some more music. And then we're going to take a look at Gerald Gardner's book, High Magic's Aid.
I have seen the northern lights, looked out my window at just the right time. I'd been waiting for a sign, when green and golden they filled the night sky. Now this vision, it was mine, but which direction? So much to ponder. I would take a little time. I've waited this long, why not longer? And the nights are getting colder. Could this touch of gray really mean I'm getting this much older? Coyotes getting bolder, laughing right outside the door. But if you want to see the northern lights, you gotta lift up your head. And if you want to have some kind of life, decide you're not better off dead. And if you want to read the mystic story written in your future, you better start to write it now. You better start to write it now. Tell the truth from lies. What's a life without examination? Afraid to scan the midnight skies. I keep my head down, wait for confirmation. And the nights have gotten colder. And yeah, this touch of gray really means I've gotten this much older. Coyotes gotten bolder, stealing stuff right out the door. But if you want to see the northern lights, you gotta lift up your head. And if you want to have some kind of life, decide you're not better off dead. And if you want to read the mystic story written in your future, you better start to write it now. You better start to write it now. Devil in a field. I said, oh, finally, did you bring my contract? And the secret he revealed was that he waits for no one, and he's never made a single deal. Meanwhile, the nights have gotten cold, write it now. If you wanna see the northern lights, you gotta lift up your head. And if you wanna have some kind of life, besides you're not better off dead. And if you wanna read the mystic story written in your future, you better start to write it now. I'm gonna start to write it now. You better start to write it now. You better start to write it now.
He said there is a dragon on the path. There is a dragon on the path. He said there is a dragon on the path. Oh, love is like a shiny emerald. There is a dragon on the path. There is a dragon on the path. Oh, there is a dragon on the path. Oh, love is like a shiny emerald.
It is your turn now. 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 It is yours, your turn now. It is your turn now. To greeten your gift. It is your turn. It is your turn. It is your turn now. It is your turn now. It is your turn now. Read the history of the sages. Awaken yourself to the wisdom of the ages. Awaken yourself. It is your turn
Right, so we just heard Gaia Consort with Secret of the Crossroads Devil from their album Gaia Circles, and then Who Dosed with It Is Your Turn Now from their album In an Eastern Rose Garden. And in our review tonight, we're looking at Gerald Gardner's classic High Magic's Aid. Gerald Gardner lived from 1884 to 1964 and was a British civil servant and an occultist. High Magic's Aid was published in 1949, a few years prior to the repeal of the last anti-witchcraft law in that country, and about 5 years after Helen Duncan was put on trial for witchcraft. In Helen Duncan's case, she was a practicing medium, and in November 1941, in a seance in Portsmouth, she revealed that a sailor had told her that the HMS Barham had been sunk. The British government took note because this information had not been made available to the general public. And Duncan was tried under the Witchcraft Act of 1735 and was imprisoned for 9 months in 1944. The government had discovered the leak, but found that the Witchcraft Act was a convenient means to bring charges against her. Still, in Gerald Gardner's mind, writing openly about witchcraft this soon after someone had been jailed for the charges of witchcraft didn't seem a great idea. High Magic's Aid is a story about a magician, rather a practitioner of magic named Thur, who is in search of tools with which to practice his magic. He had been a student, he knew the theory, having studied extensively, but he lacked the tools which he needed to obtain from a witch. These tools being in a theme, a white-handled knife, or as Wiccans may call it, a bowline. The first part of this book is the quest, finding the witch. He eventually, with the help of 2 friends, Jan and Olaf, performs a spell which provides him with the location of that witch, and they journey to find her. When they do, they narrowly escape being captured by the church and put to death for witchcraft themselves. The young woman, initially named Vada, who eventually changes her name to Morven, provides Thur with the tools he needs, and also the skill to use them, but also a great deal more that he doesn't initially recognize that he and the rest of the party are in need of. The next part of the quest involves making the ritual tools that he needs for the magician's own work, including his sword and various pentacles and other items, which required the athame and the white-handled knife, and raising up something of an army to defend the old religion from the zealots of the church, and to regain Jan's rightful land from a man by the name of Fitzurse, who has been an evil and harsh lord over the people of the land. Fitzurse commands a fair number of trained soldiers, and overcoming these men with country folk alone would be foolish, so they will need the help of potent magic if they are to succeed. But their work is made more difficult because it cannot be done in the open. The church is about on its hunt against witchcraft and witches, and any hint could expose them. The rites and rituals in the text are said to be true, and if you've gone through more traditional Wiccan rituals or initiations, you will certainly find yourself in familiar territory more than once in the text. You will also find that ceremonial magic, the Kabbalah, and other occult practices have been a part of Wicca since it was invented by Gerald, Gardner, and Doreen Valente. Some branches of Wicca have managed, as Protestantism has managed, to divest itself from the trappings of Catholicism, to free themselves from much of the ceremonialism and associated Judeo-Christian trappings that are encountered in High Magic's Aid, and which have made their way into many traditions of Wicca and other branches of neo-paganism. But as in Christianity, where we can find some churches that can't seem to find a solid spiritual footing, we see the same in a good bit of paganism. The struggle that we see in High Magic's Aid can be a metaphor on many levels. While some practitioners are naked in their rites, they aren't truly naked. A true practitioner is clothed and robed in power. Whether or not they are naked, they're actually naked in their rites. When we try to divest too much and do so without thought, it's like being naked in a rite, without the power of the god or goddess to cover us. My first inclination in reading High Magic's Aid was too much Christianity. But I can understand this is where Gardner was coming from in his Western esoteric training. He was coming from the same place as Dion Fortune. But in High Magic's Aid, he finds Varda, who becomes Morven. I find the character of Morven a bit naive, a bit taken with Thur's ability and power. But when reading the text, it seems that Morven has a much greater innate ability than does Thur himself. But somehow Gardner seems to ascribe more power to the ceremonial side of magic than he does natural magic. Personally, I think there can be a type of natural ceremony where we are dealing with forces of nature directly as natural magicians, as witches, and where we can have every bit as effective as ceremonial magicians. But that's not something to deal with in a review. Perhaps that will be the topic of another practical pagan segment for another time. Back to the book, though. I've been going through a number of books that I consider foundational to modern neo-paganism, and I'm embarrassed that I hadn't read this one prior to this past week. I'm really glad that I did. There was nothing in it regarding Wicca that I was unfamiliar with, but it was an interesting look into Gardner's way of thinking and his way of presenting his idea of Wicca in a novel form. There are some things I didn't like. I think the most irritating thing was his use of the word wench when he was first talking to Varda. It was constant. It was irritating. And I know and I understand that it's not a pejorative, but it seemed a bit too much. Perhaps Gardner just liked the word. Some parts of the book seemed repetitive, and while the ritual elements were there, they weren't all explained. I suppose that's by design. It was possible to keep the craft secret and open at the same time. It's a way to hide something in plain sight, so to speak. What I liked the fact that Gardner put forth real ritual elements in the form of a novel and did so effectively. He also showed how much of a struggle it can be for ritual to work. It's not always simple, plug and play, and formulaic. Ceremonial magic sometimes requires one to think on one's feet. Aside from the magical lessons included in the book, there is one other really important lesson, and it's this. Sometimes it's important to consider the possible costs one might be facing in order to achieve one's goals. There's a question that one often hears: what would you dare to try if you knew you would not fail? But sometimes, even if one doesn't fail, the cost of success can be quite high. Is success always worth the price? This is definitely a should read, and I wish I'd read it sooner. You will see some people comparing it to Tolkien. Gerald Gardner was no Tolkien, but it's still worth the read. And now we'll do our Pagan FM Almanac right now before we hear a little more music. So today is February 7th. The moon is waxing gibbous and will reach its last quarter on Monday, February 9th. The sun's currently in Aquarius, and it will be so until February 18th. February 12th marks, you guessed it, the passing of Gerald Gardner. He was born on June 13th, 1884. Gardner was an English Wiccan known by his craft name Seer. He was an amateur anthropologist, and he was instrumental in bringing the religion of Wicca to the modern world. He was the author of the book that we just reviewed tonight. He was a member of the Rosicrucian Order Crotona Fellowship, and claimed that it was through this group that he encountered the New Forest Coven, into which he was initiated as a witch. Gardner founded the Gardnerian tradition of Wicca and published a number of books on witchcraft, including A Goddess Arrives, High Magic's Aid, Witchcraft Today, and the Meaning of Witchcraft. Excuse me. Gardner was known for embellishing his academic credentials and for his detestation of homosexuality. He also suffered from asthma, which in some ways gives me reason to wonder if Dion Fortune may have had him in mind when she wrote The Sea Priestess. In 1963, Gardner went to Lebanon for the winter. Returning via the Scottish Prince, he suffered a fatal heart attack whilst breakfasting on February 12, 1964. He was buried at the ship's next port of call in Tunisia, and the funeral was attended only by the ship's captain. So we'll listen to a little more music, and then we'll get into our herb of the week.
From the depth of the forest she will find you. She will drag you up and call you into being. She will lay her naked body on the debris. She will howl until her spirit overruns the city. She will rise up through the cracks between the pavements. She will buckle train lines, bridges all collapsing, and the towers of the mighty become frail as she opens up her belly to devour. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Come and take over. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Hulls upon the shoreline. She will swallow up the iron that was stolen. She will vomit up the plastic and the poison. Her oceans will make islands of the mainlands. Her tendrils will be wrapped around the cables, and the buried bones of buildings will lie vacant as she feeds gaze upon the ribcage of forever, forever. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Come and take over. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Come and take over. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Come and take over. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Come and take over. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Come and take over. Come and take over, creator, destroyer. Come and take
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it cruel that a man can earn millions from kicking the ball, while for other countries we roll the dice for a little clean water and a bowl of rice? Politicians' empty promises help lessen our pain. It's only human. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it right? There's nothing as worthless as an animal's life, but it helps me feel better when I feel ill. I can't taste the pain in this little pill. 1,000 lives given to live just a few more years. It's only human. Tear down a forest for grass that won't grow, to help melt the ice caps, to help melt Isn't it holy? Isn't it good that people kill people in the name of their God? A bomb for a father, a bullet for a son, and a smile for a child that carries a gun. Only one God can be right when all's said and done. It's only human. It's only human. It's only human.
So that was Wendy Rule with Creator Destroyer from her album Wolf Sky, and Dave the Bard from his with Only Human from his album The Cauldron Born. So I'm glad I'm at the end here, or near the end. I notice my asthma is acting up a little bit, so I'll be finishing it up in just a few minutes, but I did want to talk about our herb of the week. Tonight we're talking about pine resin. And there are many of us who, when looking for herbs, will go to herbal shops and health food stores and vitamin shops or purchase things online. Often this is because we are afraid of the dangers of lookalikes, such as confusing hemlock for Queen Anne's lace or other similar poisonous herbs that can be confused for more helpful items. Other herbs may not be available where we live, and many can't be harvested locally in the wild or in the winter. But here in North America, there is one that is fairly ubiquitous, even though it comes in different varieties. And that is pine trees. Pines are quite common, and because of this, pine resin is also readily available. First thing to be somewhat cautious of is the difference between pine and some other shrubs, such as yew, which people often use as decorative shrubs. But pine trees are fairly easily identifiable. If you're not sure, you can ask someone. And there are a few varieties. But once you've identified your pine trees, the first thing to note is that there is a difference between the resin and the sap. Sap is the energy source of trees. It's kind of like the blood of trees. It's the liquid in the trees that contains the sugars and minerals and waters and provides the fuel for growth and reproduction. Resin, on the other hand, is the thicker liquid that the tree will use to cover and repair injuries to the trees. It's kind of like the clotting agent. So it's used when a branch breaks or when insects injure the bark. Resin will crystallize, and it's the stuff that we use for incense. What we're looking for is the resin and not the sap. Pine resin has been used over the ages for many, many purposes, including for shipbuilding, waterproofing, starting fires, for first aid, and medicinally. Pine resin is a natural antiseptic and antibacterial, and it can have anti-inflammatory properties. It can help to heal wounds and reduce the risk of infection, but to do so, if you're using it topically on your body, like many natural oils and resins, it must be diluted. So for this reason, it must be used in a salve, perhaps mixed with a mix of beeswax and a carrier oil. Pine as an aroma has also been used to help with some breathing issues, and it's naturally evocative of the winter holidays. Some pine resins have been used as a natural, though potent, chewing gum. When thinking of deities associated with pine, what comes to my mind, I'll think of Pan, Cernunnos, and Diana, and other deities associated with the woods and the hunt. You might find other associations. So, yeah, pine resin, especially in northern climes, pretty much anywhere. It's really healthful and available in many, many places. So now to our Oppression Watch. There's been a lot going on lately. Donald Trump was a bit surprised today that people would actually boo his vice president. Surprise, surprise, at the Olympics even. Oh my gosh. Anyway, he has decided that in order to release funding, this kind of affects me in this area near New Jersey, that in order to release funding to complete the railway work between New York and New Jersey, he requires that Dulles International Airport and Penn Station will need to be renamed in his honor. In response to flagging ticket sales at the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, he's announced that he will basically demolish the building. He decided that without consulting with the board, without consulting with any engineers or anyone else, that it is dilapidated and unsafe, and that it needs to be dismantled down to the steel structure. In short, because he feels disrespected by artists and visitors, shunning his authoritarian approach to running things, that he's going to demolish the building to the memorial to John F. Kennedy. My guess is that once he does, that he'll decide that it is no longer deserving of the Kennedy name since it was completely demolished, and it will have to be renamed after him, as pretty much everything does. This, though, is what the right wants to do with anything they disagree with. They don't like Islam, they think it shouldn't exist in the United States. They don't like paganism or Satanism, it shouldn't exist. When this program was first on the air, almost 20 years ago now, there was a huge struggle going on with the United States Department of Veteran Affairs over a lawsuit regarding the use of a pentacle on the tombstones of veterans. Patrick Stewart was killed in Afghanistan, and the VA refused his emblem of faith. Selena Fox was Circle Sanctuary. Patrick's wife and the pagan community were furious that a pagan service member could not have their own emblem of faith on their tombstone after serving their country. On September 13th, 2006, the Attorney General of Nevada agreed that the states could have control over the state veterans' cemeteries, wresting some control from the VA. But Americans United for Separation of Church and State eventually filed a lawsuit in federal court on Roberta Stewart's behalf, and the case was settled finally on April 23rd, 2007, so almost 15 years ago. Interestingly, in August of 2007, President Bush met with family members of soldiers who died in Iraq and Afghanistan. Although some of her family members were, Roberta Stewart wasn't invited. Bush later did apologize. When the military started recognizing that there were literally thousands of pagans in the military, as of 2012, that number was estimated to have been between 10 and 20,000. The military at least mentioned Wicca in a neutral fashion in its chaplain handbook. At various times, some Christian groups have tried to dissuade pagan celebrations and gatherings on military bases. I've spoken to service members who have had objects thrown at them while conducting rituals. One chaplain, Captain Don Larson, who converted from Pentecostal to Wicca and attempted to become the first Wiccan military chaplain, lost his sponsorship by the chaplaincy of Full Gospel churches. In the military, chaplains are required to have specific sponsoring organizations. They do not recognize any pagan organizations, and on loss of that sponsorship, he was dismissed. Because of this, there are no pagan military chaplains in the U.S. military. Recent statements by Pete Hegseth do not bode well for even what tolerance does exist within the military for pagans today. I'm not suggesting that there will be another burning times, but as George W. Bush once said, he didn't believe that witchcraft should be a religion or that it should be allowed in the military. I think Pete Hegseth would agree with him, but I remember well my first poem about witchcraft. It was written when I was in the Air Force, stationed at North Truro Air Force Station, and it was then that I first identified on some level as a witch. Anyway, taking a look at next week's show. Next week, we'll be looking at Rhonda McCrimmon's book, The Celtic Wheel of the Air. Already, it's kind of surprising. I started reading it yesterday, and I'm just a bit over a third of the way through it. I'm kind of enjoying it. It's not a difficult read. It's one of those that you should probably take a year to read. I'm not going to give spoilers right now, but I don't want this to be the review. But I am enjoying it, and I've been reading quickly of late. So anyway, where was I? I'm just trying to catch up with my notes. I mentioned that as I was walking to work this week, I was talking about how I was going over how we used to call the quarters, and it did hit me pretty hard. So next week, what I want to look at is the idea of ritual and why it's important, and what we can do as solitaries, and maybe a bit in groups. What's important, what tools we need, what tools we don't need, why, or do we need any tools? What are the essentials for doing ritual? But before I end tonight, we open the show with Spiral Dance's cover of a Charlie Murphy song called Burning Times. And one line in that song spoke of 9 million European women perishing in the burning times. Well, that number comes from an article published in 1784 by Gottfried Christian Voigt, who estimated that 9,442,994 women were executed over about 1,100 years. He did not provide any evidence for that number. It has been suggested that he used some form of extrapolation based on the number of people killed in certain areas and applying that over all of Europe. The problem with his numbers is that would have devastated Europe more than any plague. More scholarly, high estimates place that to somewhere between 60 and 100,000, which is still a staggering number of people to be executed by a church for the crime of witchcraft. Catholic Church did execute a great many people, and not just for witchcraft, but also for the crimes of heresy and other things. So the 60 to 100,000 people, definitely. And then there were the Crusades, and there were a lot of people who died in the name of religion. Then again, it was just huge. But the number of 9 million women being killed, that it's not accurate. But the sentiment of the song is quite legitimate. In any case, I thought we'd bookend this program with the two different versions of the song. So the first one was by Spiral Dance, which I really enjoy. And the second one is by Charlie Murphy. So this one is going to be Charlie Murphy's original song from his 1981 album, Catch the Fire. Charlie was born in Baltimore on July 4th, 1953. He worked in youth mental health services in the mid-1970s, and he spent time touring as a folk musician. And his album, Catch the Fire, was released on the Good Fairy Productions label and addressed LGBT issues and pagan spirituality. In 1993, Charlie left his music behind to focus on helping young people. Working with Peggy Taylor, he founded PYE Global Partners, that's Partner for Youth Empowerment. In 2015, Charlie was diagnosed with ALS, a degenerative nervous system disease, and he died at midnight on August 6, 2016. So we'll close tonight with Charlie's original version of Burning Times. And we'll see you next week. Blessed be.
In the cool of the evening, they used to gather 'neath the stars in the meadows circle near an old oak tree at the times appointed by the seasons of the earth and the phases of the moon. In the center stood a woman, equal with the others and respected for her worth. One of the many we call the witches, the healers and the teachers of the wisdom of the earth. And the people grew through the knowledge she gave them, herbs to heal their bodies, spells to make their spirits whole. Can't you hear them chanting, healing incantations, calling forth the wise ones, celebrating in dance and song? Isis star today Anna, Hecate Demeter Kali Inanna. Isis star today Anna, Hecate Demeter Kali Inanna. Isis star today Anna, Hecate Demeter Kali Inanna. There were those who came to power through domination, and they bonded in the worship of a dead man on a cross. They sought control of the common people by demanding allegiance to the Church of Rome. And the Pope declared an inquisition. It was war against the women whose power they feared. In this holocaust against the nature people, 9 million European women died. And the tale is told of those who by the hundreds, holding together, chose their death in the sea, while chanting the praises of the mother goddess of refusal of betrayal. Women were dying to be free. And the men still burn her, stripping her down with mining and the poisons of their war. So to us, the earth is a healer, a teacher, a mother, a weaver of a web of light that keeps us all alive. She gives us the vision to